Welcome everyone to Straight from the Paws. Today I have a new friend here with us that has been helping us out at Forever Paws. This is James, and he's from Social Animal. Train your animal, is that what you said?
Yeah, social animal dog training. We say train your dog.
Train your dog.
Could train other animals, but we stick to dogs.
Stick with dogs, okay. Yeah. Train your dog. And I want to have him explain a little bit about what his background is, and then we'll talk a little bit about what you're doing at the shelter for us.
Yeah, so I came, Gail, to this later in life. I decided in 2016 or 2015 really that I wanted to take this up as a profession, working with dogs and training them, because I wanted to do my passion. So I went and sought out a trainer down in Hampton Roads, Virginia, Dwayne Nolan, Uhuru Canine, and stepped up to him and said, "Hey, I'd like to learn. Would you teach me?" He said, "Absolutely. Go clean those kennels." So I did the grunt work there, and I got the knowledge, and I did that for about a year, and then I was taken on staff at Blue Sky Farms in Chesapeake, Virginia. And then when my wife and I moved back home to the South Coast, I just kept up and went into business for myself, and now I do it all the time. It's great.
And it's great. And you go to people's homes?
Yeah, I provide an in-home service. I do any kind of dog training, just simple obedience training, kind of like basic husbandry, house manners, up to very kind of advanced obedience training. And probably most of my business is dealing with behavior problems in dogs. So we see a lot of various levels of aggression, anxiety, just bad behaviors generally. That's usually the thing that make people call me, because other than that, your dog is awesome to live with. And then, they're scaring your neighbors away from the fence, and it becomes something you want to take care of, yeah.
Well, that is interesting. And do you have a number that people can be contacted?
Yeah, so I can be reached at 508-251-9369.
Okay, so that's the number, folks. If you have a dog that has some issues that you want to take care of, this is the man to talk to, because I will say that James has been coming and volunteering his services at Forever Paws. And tell people what you do at the shelter. Obviously the same thing, but.
Yeah, well, it definitely has to do with dogs. At the shelter, it's a little less intense for each individual dog, because resources are limited, so we do what we can. I help the staff evaluate the dogs sometimes when they come in. If there's a question, we deal with small behavior problems as we can, and I try to offer my best advice and guidance to the staff there to just teach them the best practices, how to deal with a thing, very importantly, what to avoid if at all possible. And again, in a shelter environment, it's challenging, but it's no less fun, especially when everything works out for the best.
Yeah, and they've told me that you've been a great asset to us, and I really do appreciate that. I want to give a big kudos, thank you to you for that, because it is very helpful to the staff, because as you know, we have a minimal amount of staff, and their time is busy taking care of the animals, like you said, doing the grunt work, cleaning everything up, and then they have to evaluate, and they do all the medicals and all that, and it takes a lot of time and effort. But when they have a professional like yourself come in and say, this is what you need to do with this dog, that eliminates all the trial and error they have to go through, and it's extremely helpful, and I greatly appreciate that so much.
I think oftentimes what I find is that there's just a little bit of a question mark sometimes. And as far as the staff there does a great job. They keep a wonderful kennel, clean environment. The dogs are all safe and well taken care of. But the dogs do need engagement. And my first experience working with shelters was down in Virginia, the Portsmouth Humane Society, and my volunteer work there was simply to go in and give the dogs some time, some enrichment. So that's super important when you can get it in.
And what I had a volunteer program going on too, and some people don't understand why we don't allow them to walk the dogs. They don't understand, because they just think that they can just go on. We have a walking path, as you well know. We have the agility area, playground, I guess you call it, out there, and they think it's okay that they can just take the dog and get on a leash and go. And as you know, we use martingale collars there. They don't even know what that is. They don't know how to put one on the dog, and they think, well, why can't I just go on? This is a cute little dog. It doesn't matter if the dog's little or the dog's bigger. Sometimes the little ones are the most vicious. you know,
Yeah, correct.
and it's difficult, and the volunteers don't see that. So when we have someone like yourself that comes in and is training the staff, and then they can go in turn and train a volunteer that's been there a while, we just don't allow anyone to walk these animals anymore.
It's a huge thing, because I think I want to say most of my business and most of the calls I get are from people who are just having a problem communicating with the dog. Now, any kind of collar you're going to use, a martingale collar, training collar, even a harness, or even just a simple leash like a slip lead or something like that, the dog wasn't born with it on their body. So there's a communication there that needs to happen. There's a language that is communicated through that leash. And it's important for people to have a basic understanding of what the dog's getting. Otherwise, the tendency will be to constantly pull, to get upset when when a dog feels pressure and so forth. And especially if the dog has a history of having a lot of practice lashing out at human beings and kind of getting the relief they want from a situation, it can escalate pretty quickly. So as much knowledge as anybody who's interested in working with dogs should do the dog the favor of learning a bit about the dog's language, right?
Yeah, I know we were trying to put something together where you were coming in and maybe helping out some of the new owners. I don't know if we're still in the planning stage with that, but that's something that you've also offered as a service to and help us out and, you know, get some business for yourself as well, which would be awesome. Now, let me just ask you a question. Let's just say a dog, I'll use I have a little Chihuahua Papillon mix, and she's getting older, and she's been taught the basic training, you know, she has been trained, but, you know, when certain people walk in the house, some people she just does not take to. She'll bark. Now, we have meetings at our home all the time, so I can have 18 people come in the house, come in through the door all the time, and then that she'll know someone that she doesn't know, and she may not like that person. So something like that, how long does it take a dog to sort of retrain them? Personally, I think she's pretty good with it, deciding on who she wants in the house.
Yeah, so, all right, so first thing I would say is that you don't have to like everybody you meet. Right. I know I don't.
Me neither.
So that's only fair. Dog's got a right to not like somebody. And the question is, how do you act when you don't like somebody, right? So again, it goes back to how much rehearsal the dog has had with the behavior. I keep Rottweilers in my house, my wife and I don't keep them for any reason. So sometimes, or for no reason, I should say. Sometimes they'll bark at people. Sure. It's what dogs do. The question is, what will they do after they bark and alert and say, oh, I'm uncomfortable with this. And then the question is, what do you do then? So, regarding a stranger in your house, the question I would have is, how strong is your dog's obedience? If she's super obedient, but you haven't really drilled her in a long time, you might want to go back and start building those skills in the absence of a stranger, right? To kind of get those back sharp. And then you've got to kind of take her through that greeting and guide her through and show her what you want her to do. This, not that. And that requires you to, again, have kind of some strong alternative behaviors, simple as go to your bed, sit, go to your crate, something just basic, right? And then working your dog through that situation so that she can kind of get used to that scene. Someone I know doesn't like come in here, I should go do this other activity instead. And how long it would take? Depends on how strong your dog's obedience are, how long the behavior's been going on, and how good you are at recognizing the moment when the anxiety shows up in your dog, or the aggression, when they notice that new thing coming into the environment. Oftentimes what I'll see is dogs that are sitting there for a good 30 seconds just trying their best to deal with the situation, and the owner, the handler, in any case, is often just kind of a little oblivious. We're busy doing other things. Right. So if I know my dog's going to be potentially reactive to that, I'm going to be greeting people like, "Hey, hello, how's it going? Welcome to my home. That's great." And my eyes are going to be on my dog the whole time, so I can effectively communicate in the moment. That's
what I was looking for. Communication has to be from I think the human first. I think the human has to know what the dog needs. We have to know our animals, and I think a lot of times we get the animals back at the shelter because they say, Oh, I tried, and that didn't work. Or I tried, like I know people that have had several different trainers. They don't want to follow through with the trainers telling them to do, and then all of a sudden the dog turns around and maybe nips somebody, you know, and because they were fearful, and the animal now has a bite history, and what happens, you know? We at Forever Paws, I've got to say, Ariana looks into the whole history of everything and tries to make a decision. And thankfully, we have someone like you. We have another trainer that comes in on Sundays as well, and they help us to evaluate. Well, yeah, okay, so let's take a better look at this. I know with my dog, I know where she's at, and it's funny because sometimes I agree with her, you know, who's coming into the house, and you know, wasn't someone that I personally invited in, and so I'm comfortable with where she's at, and I just say, okay, quiet, and then she comes to me, and then I pick her up, and we're good, and she's okay. But there are other dogs that are bigger dogs that have difficulties with that, and you know, I hear what you're saying, and I think that's very important. One of the things I'd like to just touch base with, because I know that there's a lot going on with this, we hear anxiety in our animals, people using CBD oils and so on and so forth. They're trying to help the animals. What's your take on that?
Well, I'm not a veterinarian,
okay.
So if your veterinarian tells you that you should try something for your dog, absolutely try it. They're medical professionals, they know what they're doing. From my perspective, as someone who deals with the dog's behavior, I've got to say a couple of things. First would be that any tool, just like any trainer, and there are a lot of good trainers in this area, a really good crew of trainers that are operating in our area. Any one of them can show you ways to deal with your dog's behavior, make it better. But it's not like downloading an app on your phone. You don't just hit update and you get the new information and the dog works perfectly and seamlessly. You got to put the work in, because your dog's a sentient being. They have their own desires, if you want to call them that, right? Mm-hmm. They have their own fears, if you want to call them that. Those are very human words, but sure. That's what we see present in the dog. Then you find yourself with, if you find yourself with a problem, like an anxious dog, a dog that's going to, you know, some sort of either defensive or even offensive aggression behind it, and you think you're going to solve that problem with a medication, you might be able to dull it with a medication. If you think you're going to solve that problem with a tool, that tool might be helpful in helping you guide your dog through that situation, but it's not. You know, we see a lot of, you know, like traditional training collars. We see a lot of e-collars now. People showing up with an e-collar, but the e-collar is not. It's not a bigger stick. It's not just, you know, this key to the whole thing. The key is communication. The key is learning as much as you can about your dog's behavior. You are engaged in animal husbandry if you keep a dog in the house, and it's our responsibility as the I guess the higher being, I don't know, that, you know, we're capable of more complex thought and so forth. I mean, that's why, you know, we walk dogs and they don't walk us, hopefully. But, you know, it's our job. We have a responsibility to keep that animal and to learn a bit about it. We got to learn what's good for them to eat, what's good for them to not eat, and similarly, we got to learn what are the causes of their socially unacceptable behaviors.
Thank you. I totally agree with you on that, and I appreciate that. And unfortunately, we ran out of time. So we're going to have you another time, but I really thank you for all you do for the shelter and what you do for our dogs and the dogs in the neighborhood.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on, and yeah, let's do it again.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Sounds great.